Oh, we have more coming on now. Perfect.
Hello, welcome everybody.
Oh, and there's Grosh.
We'll start in a few minutes, a couple minutes here.
Oh, there. That's better.
All right. Happy Saturday, everybody.
Thanks, same to you.
Thank you.
Great background choice again today, Grosh.
Yeah, thank you. I was reading some of the survey responses last night, and a lot of the conversations are about 3 miles planes, like, and lack of safety for walking around. And I found this saying walking together in 3 miles, so I figured it's very appropriate. Do we have anyone from 3 miles community or someone who identifies as Black Nova Scotian?
I'm a phys ed teacher. My job is between 3 Mile Plains, Windsor Forks, and Windsor Elementary. Right now I'm filling in out at Brooklyn. So yeah.
Welcome.
Little connection.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
So you work in the community, are there, in 3 miles, the school in 3 miles plane, right?
Yeah, my job that I'm attached to is phys ed, is the gym teacher between those 3 schools.
Okay.
And so right now, since first part of November, I've been at Brooklyn Elementary, and I'm there until at least March, and no longer than November of next year. I'm just filling in for a mat leave.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so I will be back to school.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, that's in the great background. What are we looking at? Some paintings?
Oh, just some spin arts that you see like on TikTok. I got my own version of them.
Nice, nice. Which community are you calling from?
3 Mile or Windsor, Nova Scotia. I live in 3 Mile Plains.
So you're in 3 Mile, okay. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I think I know Debbie and Bill from previous consultations. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to have you here today.
So is there anyone else that is from the 3 Mile Plains community specifically, or identifies as Black Nova Scotian on the call? I'm just trying to get a lay of the land here.
Hi, Harley Gray.
Yeah.
Harley Gray, Juanita Gray, and Patsy Allison.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
We're all from 3 Mile Plains.
Excellent. And can you see, you don't have to turn on your video, but can you see my video because I'm going to share a presentation?
I can see you.
Excellent. Yeah, there's going to be a presentation where I am right now. There's going to be a presentation soon. So.
Okay, you're sitting in front of a sign that some of our kids actually helped to make from the 3 Mile Plains area at the 3 Mile Plains school.
Yeah, I wish I could be in the community, but this is the closest I could come, unfortunately.
Oh, that's good. That works. Nice to meet you.
You as well. Thank you.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
We'll start in a couple of minutes. We'll just wait for to see if anyone else would join us. We'll wait until 1:05, and then we'll start. I also see Lisa on the call here. Hello, Lisa. Welcome back. Jeremy, is that your own work on the wall? You're muted. Is that your own work? Oh, you're still muted. Let me.
Juanita, hi. I'm just trying to figure my way around here.
Sure. Welcome. Yeah, that's- Okay, so hello, Harley. How are you? You're muted right now, but we can see you.
Hi.
Now, you hear me now?
Perfect. Yes, we can hear you. Perfect.
That's-
It makes it a lot more, you know, almost as if we are in person when we can see your face. So, welcome.
What's that?
Hello, Lisa. Welcome.
Hi.
I think our team members talked to you back in January or February, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly.
almost a year ago now.
Yeah, it's been that long. We've been trying to get to the community. It's great to have you. Thank you. All right, we'll start in 1 minute at 1:05. So we'll just see if anyone else will join us. Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to apologize for the confusion about the in-person meeting. We had the intention to go and be in the community. We've been trying to get into the community since March. We planned one consultation, then COVID happened, and we planned a second one, second wave happened. And then we really thought this time around we're going to be able to be in the community, but then late on Thursday, Crystal called me and said that, did you know that you actually cannot host any meetings in person? I totally missed that public health guidelines, so I apologize about that. But I'm glad at least we could get some of the community members here. We figured we should try. I will give you a sort of an overview of where we are with the project and what we've done, what the goal is, and all of that. But I wanted to apologize for the confusion there, and I'm glad that you could make it to the consultation today. Before I begin, this consultation is specifically about the African Nova Scotians living in the community and the people that identify as marginalized community. We have had 3 other sessions before this. If necessary, we'll have another one coming up. I know some people didn't get their invites early enough. So if you're here and you don't identify with the community, I ask that you be an observant. It's about hearing other the voices that we were trying to capture in 3 Miles Plain. So yeah, I ask that you might keep that in mind as we go through this consultation today. We decided not to make this exclusive because we felt that a lot of people wanted to hear from the community itself as well. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to start with a presentation. If I can share my screen. Can everybody see my screen right now?
Yep.
Excellent. If this goes to full screen, that'd be great. If I can ask everybody to mute themselves, that would be great. I can also try to do it. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. So my name is Kurosh Rad. I'm with Rad Consulting. As Lisa mentioned, we started this project almost a year ago. At the time, amalgamation hadn't completed yet. It was still ongoing. The consolidation hasn't been completed yet. We were brought into the project sort of towards the end of it to look beyond the consolidation and what would happen after that. I'm going to go through what we've done so far, what we are hoping to achieve by the end of this project, and then from there we'll get to the consultation. So the goal of the project was to go beyond current consolidation process. It was a mandated process from the provincial government, and we were brought in to talk about, to look beyond what the community would look like once together. We decided to do a number of things before we begin to go into the public. One was engage with internal staff, identify and engage minority groups and other stakeholders that are not necessarily always part of the conversations. We wanted to make sure that we talk to them. Identify and engage community leaders. We wanted to host 6 community workshops in person. Obviously we couldn't. And from there, the goal of all of the consultation was to identify community-led projects and research regional, provincial, and national project funding opportunities to potentially help community-led projects come to fruition. We also had in our mandate to recommend a community advisory committee to new council, which would be potentially made up of a number of community leaders from different communities, and propose a future engagement framework where the new municipality can use in their engagement moving forward. And from there, we wanted to present findings to future council. So I'll just go through this very quickly because I want to get to the website and show you where the report is. But early on when we started this project, we identified a few groups that we thought would be important to talk to. Glooskap First Nations was obviously one of them. We talked to a few people from African Nova Scotian community. We talked to the Acadian community members. We talked to some students. Because of COVID, we couldn't complete all of them, but we covered many of the groups that were identified in this page here. In conversation with Glooskap First Nations, these were one-on-one conversations before COVID. The discussion about the trails was prominent, and this necessity for feeling safe in the community. Community wanting to be more involved overall with the greater community of Windsor and West Hants. There were challenges in the community of for access to healthcare services, most importantly mental health services, and the conversations got very emotional when we're talking about LGBTQ plus challenges in the community for youth and their families, and the lack of safe spaces for people to be able to go to spaces. The conversations are very detailed. I'm just going to move past this one, but I'll show you where the report is so you can read the report yourself. We talked to the Acadian community members. They talked about the importance of having an identity in the new municipality, having wayfinding opportunities, dialogues about the history of the community and the presence in there. And obviously we talked to African Nova Scotians. What we heard were, very hard conversations to be had, but important ones nevertheless. The concerns about existing forms of racism, especially environmental racism, particularly with noise pollution, and no walkways and road neglect, and all of that was part of the conversation. The lack of representation of the African Canadian community of West Hants in the position of power and authority was a major concern. Lack of acknowledgement of Black History Month and many important African Canadian figures from the region was another concern. Greater prevention and treatment measures for health issues affecting the Black community was identified as a priority. The elderly of the Black community are impaired by the lack of communication, transportation, and medical care. This is also something that we heard from other community members, that elders generally feel that is something that needs to be improved for most community members, but it was more pronounced in the African Nova Scotian communities from what we heard. We also talked to the youth. They had different, priorities. They talked about their how proud of the agriculturally rich coastal region that they live in they are, They talked about transportation issues. They talked about the importance of saving the environment that they live in, creating more safe spaces for teens, and more community engagement amongst all these different community groups that we were talking about. The youth wanted to have the ability to integrate better with their peers. We also talked to staff through an internal workshop. At the time, it was 2 different municipalities. We brought the key staff together and talked about challenges, solutions, and public engagement and their aspirations for the future. In the staff internal workshop, we heard about their sense of excitement about the consolidation. They told us that they've been working together for many years informally, but now it's nice for them to be able to work under same roof for the most part and being able to look at the same objectives. They talked about their hopes for greater efficiency and internal departmental integration. They talked about the fact that they want to have better communication, better HR and community relations. They wanted to have consistency, accessibility, and transparency when they have the community engagements and communication. They also talked about the importance of generating more excitement, energy, and participating better with the community. They also talked about the importance of building trust within the new organizations with the public. That kept coming up over and over again with internal staff in the workshop that we had. We also talked to a one-on-one discussion with Warden Zebian, who is now the mayor. He talked about the excitement that he had for the work ahead. He talked about the tremendous potential of the consolidation. He also emphasized the importance of better engagement and representation of diverse community in order to attract more people to the region and improve quality of life of existing residents through better service delivery. We talked to Mayor Ellen, who has retired since. She also talked about the excitement that she has for the consolidation. She talked about addressing housing disparity and transportation issues. A big part of the conversation that I was in the room with her was around racial divide in the community, and particularly the instances of racial conflicts that has been happening in the community over the years. And she thought that that's something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible, and something that needs to be ongoing. She also talked about the need for inclusiveness and education around diversity and creating a unity and empowering all residents toward the same goal. We also talked to Mr. Phillips, who's the CEO of the new municipality. He talked about his belief in the region, having everything a great community would need. He had faith in organizations to be able to deliver the promise of the consolidation, and his goals for empowering and trusting the expertise of his staff. He also emphasized the importance of consistency, collaboration, continuity of relationship with the public. And we talked about the diversity, and he mentioned that one of his goals is to have these conversations that we're having today as well. Through the work that we did, we identified a few themes and findings that we thought are good starting points, things that people could potentially all get behind, regardless of which community they're from. One was improve public transit to connect residents to community and regional services, strengthen advocacy for physical and mental health services to encompass, to include the needs of the aging rural population and other marginalized communities, targeted education and awareness programs to draw attention to the region's rich social and cultural history, particularly to address issues of systematic racism, greater diversity, representation, and inclusion in all areas of administration, governance, and decision-making process. The next theme is improvements to the community infrastructure, such as trails and roads, to including a safer and more expansive trail system and extended waterfront connections, affordable housing for all generations living in the region, including seniors looking to downsize, expanding young families and young professionals, creating belonging through community-led projects such as youth centers and rec centers that supports the needs and desires of the dynamic, changing population. And finally, ongoing and consistent engagement and relationship building between politicians, staff, and the public. We will come back to these themes. I have one more slide here. The next steps that we wanted to do was the workshops that we were hoping to undertake. I'm just going to go to the website from here so we can talk about that for a second. So everything that I talked about is kind of captured in this website here. You have a little, has everyone been able to go to the website? So the website is whrmtogether.com. There's a short description of the work that's been done. We started back in January 2020. We did the background analysis. We did the one-on-one meetings that we talked about. We prepared an interim report that was done in mid-March. Our next step was going to be in-person engagements, but obviously that got canceled and delayed several times. And the next steps from here is going to be comprehensive analysis of all the consultation information, prepare final report, and presenting the findings to the new municipality. In the absence of being able to go to the community, we decided to do a survey. If you haven't done so already, please take the survey. Last I checked, we have around 140 responses, so thank you for that. And it's very diverse results coming in from different age groups and different communities, so thank you for that. But if you haven't taken it already, the survey is going to be open for another week, so I invite you to take the survey. We have had several engagements so far. We had a consultation kickoff on November 25th. We've had, unfortunately, we send out mailouts, but because of the Christmas season coming up, some of the mailouts were delayed. We have had 3 workshops so far. Some of the people on this call have already been part of those sessions. If you haven't been, they are recorded. I started with the presentation that I just presented to you, so you can skip that and go further, but all the recordings are here. The recording for this session also will be available here. We have one more session coming up with First Nation workshop that would be for band members only. That's also going to be online. If you wanted to dig a little deeper into the conversation we've had so far, the presentation that I just gave is available right here. And the report, a very detailed report with the discussions captured in greater details right here. So you can see community leaders' interviews. And some of them, the names you see here are replaced with their real name just to maintain people's privacy, but you can see all the conversations in great details. So with that, before I go into the formal section of the engagement, I'm going to stop for a minute and take any questions or comments you may have before we go to the next section of the session, which is consultation.
I just had a question about the survey. This is the first time that I've seen it, and I just wonder who it's targeting and what strategies have been used to try and engage the community, because 174 people is a really low sample.
Yeah, so we sent in the mail out to 18,000 people back in November, in late November, with the link to the survey and link to the website. We were hoping for greater responses, but it's just been a really challenging. I totally hear you, Lisa. It's been a very challenging for us to be able to reach out to the community. Crystal, do you want to talk a little further about that as well?
Yeah, so just to add to what Karosh was saying, actually the 140 responses, believe it or not, is pretty typical to what we get. It's actually higher than we would normally get in any survey of any type for the municipality, which I know is really sad, which is also part of the reason why we want to do this, because obviously it's either people aren't getting the information or don't feel as though they want to participate. So that's some of the stuff that we're trying to get to the bottom of. We used our social media, to be honest, for a lot of it, which is unfortunate because obviously we realize not everybody is on social media, but the mail out I think was the biggest one because it was supposed to be sent to every single resident. So I think it was, as Karosh had said, I think it was 18,000 mail outs went out, but where we did have to change it from the in-person meetings to online, it was very quick that the decision was made in order to be able to move forward with the consultations at all. That was a decision that was made kind of last minute, and the timing of it being close to Christmas and all of that stuff. It was just a whole comedy of errors, I guess, if for lack of a better way of saying it, sort of thing. So we did the best that we could with the time that we had to do it. So
And
does that make sense?
Just to show you the sort of the survey, can you see my screen, Lisa?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do ask here is the engagement. How can we best engage the community? I think one of the challenges that exists right now is we don't know what are the best ways to engage each and every single community that exists within the municipality. So one of the questions is how can we better engage the community? So as a part of that, maybe we can start actually with that question. What do you think is there? Let's start from right now. How can we get this survey to as many people as possible to make sure that we have greater reach as we speak?
And I think when you only have a week to still have the survey up, you're kind of challenged in terms of how many people you're going to reach and what kind of response you're going to get. I think some more direct conversation is a bit appreciated, especially where people are so limited with that because of the pandemic right now. So things like phoning households, speaking to a real person rather than something in a mailbox, something on social media again, sort of creating a space and an opportunity for people to have a conversation, even though it's 6 feet apart, to have a conversation and say, there's a survey that's happening in our community and we want to get as many people engaged as possible, and try and actually seek some commitment either in person or on the phone from folks. I think if you had more time, you could also look at opportunities like texting people within a community. Most people have cell phones at this point, and so that also reaches a high number of people. So just putting that out there as an option to send links that way.
Sure, I think that's definitely, it's absolutely important. And again, like I don't like doing online consultations, and I would love to be able to go to the community more than once and be able to go and have those one-on-ones. And I 100%, I think your comments are definitely appreciated and will be reflected in one of the things we are going to actually talk about in the report are the limitations of the consultation that we had to do this year. And one of them would be what you just talked about. I will also point out that we had to go ahead with all the online stuff because we have our funding is from the province to complete this, and they have given us a deadline until end of January. But we are happy to continue this consultation. We're going to pass. There's going to be a consultation framework provided to the municipality that one of them could be the survey continuing on. We don't have to close it, but we just have to get the feedback into a report in the next week. Maybe we can even push it another few days after that. So if you can pass on the survey to as many people as possible. The survey, I'm just going to commit right now to it, Crystal, if you don't mind. I'm not going to close it. We are just going to get the data. We have to finalize the report by the end of the month. So we'll just allow that to be a rolling consultation and as a survey as we go along, and we'll capture the information as much as possible.
I just had a question. So like when you were actually recruiting individuals, or I know there was a lot of social media blitz on it. How come the idea of like actually people seeking wasn't addressed? Like I know you sent over 18, we'll say 1,000 requests out to people to engage, but like the federal government and provincial government actually seek out and contact people directly and say, can you come here on this day to be part of the session? And it's more formal as opposed to as open invite / engagement wise, because my dad didn't even know I was doing this today. And he's like, what are you talking about? Now he's in Falmouth, but his roots are from 3 Mile Plains. So he might've got the survey. He might not think he's from the community anymore, but he grew up here. He's here every day. I live here. So he's just as important voice to have as opposed to mine, because I'm younger generation, but his generation has just as much insight in the community as I do.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. The consultation we usually do, we often go to the community several times. We post in the communication boards. 2 things are playing into that. One is we have a small team that is working on this. Our resources are limited, and we are hoping that this is actually a starting conversation, not the end of it. We are hoping that this is what you're saying is extremely important and will be reflected in our report, because luckily the municipality, we put the report together. I think Lisa would appreciate this. If you read it, you will see that we did not hold back any of the comments we heard. We are trying to be as honest as possible, and we're going to take that honesty to council and present the findings to them. And I hope that, at some point our engagement is going to be ending, but we are hoping that by passing this information onto the municipality, they can engage the community better. I think in the conversations we're having right now and the conversations we had last year with the group that we engaged, it is very clear that the community has not been consulted properly over the years. And what you're saying right now, sorry, your first name is not visible, just says S. Johnson.
My name is Sean Johnson.
All right. Sean, what you're saying is extremely important and will be reflected, but this is, please don't see this as the end of the conversation. This is just the starting of the conversation. So we will capture, like, you know, if you haven't taken the survey, please take it. And, you know, where it's asked, how should we engage you? It would be great if you can actually tell us, how should we engage your father that's not able to be in the session right now?
Can I just add one thing? I apologize, I don't mean to interrupt, but I know that on the information that was in the mail out, my phone number was included in that too. So if anybody wasn't comfortable coming online or doing the online consultations, I actually did receive a few phone calls, and that same information gets forwarded to Croce to include in the report. But that can happen at any time too. So anybody could reach out to me at any time, but hopefully that'll be made a little more clear moving forward, that that's my role at the municipality. So if there's ever any concerns, like as part of moving this forward, then those will be sent directly to council. You know, if you don't want to contact your counselor, which obviously you can do that at any time too, but because I do the community relations at the municipality, which is a new role. So, but.
And if you don't mind, Krish, I'd just like to say, as a counselor, I know these surveys, then we send them out. It's hard to get people to participate. And when we went through the transition, and we were, as counselors, we would go to pop-up areas to have people fill them out. And I would say 3 out of 5 didn't want to take the time to fill them out or give you, we did the exhibition, and that was on the name, and you can't make people do it. We wanted to do the mail out. We used to have a newsletter that was mailed out, and you know, these things aren't cheap, and no one would see them. No one, you get a small percentage. We still have to do it. Our residents deserve it, but people just do not get engaged until there's something, I don't want to say a negative or something that's going to affect them. Then they participate. But just to look for information, it's very hard unless you can stand there with them and pretty much do it for them. They don't take the time. I mean, Crystal's done a wonderful job putting this on our website. We all share it when it's on Facebook, and we try to get it out there. And unfortunately, too, with COVID the last year, it's made it difficult. But community meetings are more important, but we're just not there yet. But the surveys are tough. They're hard. And I mean, how many of us at night could be sitting eating supper and someone will call and say, do you have 15 minutes to do a survey? And how many actually do them or say, you know what, you just got me at supper time, can you call back? It's you know, you might get 3 out of 5, you might get 1 out of 5. So it's a tough avenue to try to find the right way to reach out to people.
Doing a survey wasn't part of our plan at all. This was out of necessity, that we're in the absence of being able to go to the community. I've been involved in engagements and that's what we pitched, that we are not actually going to do a formal thing like this. Our plan was to go where the community members are, go to places that we can engage people in their daily life, because it's hard taking the time off out of your busy schedule as it is. So yeah, again, these are just limitations that we're dealing with, but I hope that you don't see this as the end of the conversation, but just the beginning.
In terms of the survey, if you're looking to capture the youth voice, have you thought about going to the high school? Or I guess you can't actually go to the high school, but connecting with the high school students at all, even an announcement or anything to capture them, since they're kind of a captive audience right there?
We have relied on social media so far. Crystal, have you been able to send anything to the schools at all, or?
Earlier on in the consultation, we did meet with a focus group and spoke with Principal Dickey about what was going on. So, but yeah, that's absolutely something that we can send that out again. So thank you for that. And I'll email it out to her actually as soon as this one's over. and let her know and see if she can put it in the newsletter or send it out to the students directly. So thank you for that.
Are you connected with the school yourself?
Not anymore now.
Okay. 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 Great point, Lisa. Yeah, we'll reach out directly to the school. Okay, so maybe we can be. I'm in no rush. I think Jeremy, did you want to say something?
I had a question on when you the themes topic there.
Yes.
One of the topics was trails into the town. Are we going to be talking on that later on in the meeting, or are these themes for any time to talk about?
Yeah, we're actually gonna go through every single priority and talk about those individually. So yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. Yeah.
All right, all good. Just checking.
Great. Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna open up my sheet here. 1 second. And just to point out, you will see me that I am not taking any notes. We do have my colleague Virginia Conchon taking notes, and this session is also recorded. So I'm trying to be as attentive as possible here, but we have people that are helping us put the report together and they're taking notes. So rest assured, everything is going to get captured. So I was reading some of the survey responses last night, some of them from community members in 3 Miles Plain, and the issue of being able to walk in the community kept coming up. And I found it's very appropriate for the conversation today in my background. And I think Lisa mentioned that this is something that the school children have painted in the school. So maybe we can start with that. I think that's probably been an ongoing issue for many residents. What are the challenges for the community members to feel safe and be able to walk around and to be able to be in the community, go to each other's homes, either walkability or cycling or anything like that? Can we start with that?
And I think a lot of this was captured when we did our interview last year. You know, it's difficult to sort of connect with community members and walk with your kids. Like I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, and I rarely walk on the street with them. There's no shoulder, let alone a sidewalk. And we can't walk anywhere in the evening because there's very little lighting. So unless you're carrying a flashlight and holding the hands of 2 children, you're not going to go out and, you know, have a walk in the evening. So it's quite limited in terms of actually being able to safely walk, you know, even to the bus stop in the morning. That's a challenge with my kids. You know, I'm sort of nearly in the ditch at some points with them when there are trucks coming by. So that's a huge safety concern, as well as being a problem in terms of the health and fitness and wellness of a community.
If I can dig a little deeper on that one, Lisa, what does that mean for the community not to be able to walk around?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
Let's dig a little deeper into that. Like, what does it mean for a community member living there not feeling safe to walk from one place to another?
I mean, it's got a huge impact on the community. I mean, I've got you know, neighbors who I'd like to be able to visit that I don't necessarily walk to. You know, so and I'm a nurse, so you know, I kind of frame everything from a health perspective. And you know, in terms of health and well-being, both physical and mental health, people aren't walking to their neighbors' homes. You know, and so that has an impact both on their physical well-being and community connections and growth. So we're missing a lot of that. And a lot of that can be attributed to the massive amount of road construction. I mean, I talked a lot about environmental racism when we had connected before. And I can't remember if you were at that meeting or if it was your colleagues.
My colleagues, yeah.
Yeah, it was your colleagues that were there. And we talked a lot about sort of the impact of things like environmental racism in terms of, you know, the massive amount of work that is done for the highways and our roads not seeing any benefit while the pit is being used so frequently. And it causes so many issues within the community, and Ponic Road isn't the only road in the Black community that's having that issue. I mean, Pleasant Street is absolutely atrocious. Green Street is absolutely atrocious. And these are roads that just never get repaired. And I guess I finally complained to the right people at some point, because when I sent a letter to the opposition leaders, somebody finally showed up on my doorstep and we got the road fixed. But we've already got tears in the road again. So, I'd say that the quality that they did on the job was enough to keep us quiet for a bit, but not actually enough to improve the road to a condition in which people can, walk on it safely. Because as I said, there's not even a shoulder to walk on. So it's a big problem.
Go ahead, Sean.
So just to tag on that is that I actually live on the back road. So in the morning before they actually get up to Ponic Road and the other areas where there are multiple crews are being run right now, it's not just one like they said on Ponic Road. They pass by my house every morning, rattle my house, take down the East Link line every day. It doesn't have to be once a day. It could be in the morning. And then when the Department of Transportation comes up by the veterinary clinic, they actually loop around the back end so that way they can avoid the trucks and everything. It's a very political tactic. So when I reached out to Lloyd with the province, because they said that a lot of the roads was the provincial responsibility, I thought, like, was there any consult about when these quarries were developed and stuff, about the requests from the municipality and the community about what we can do to actually make the community safe for people that want to walk to school? Because my son's a walker.
Mm-hmm.
So he walks from our house in theory, and according to the Department of Education, he's not a bus student, so he should be walking at his age of 6, which is not safe. DCS will tell you it's not safe, but that's the expectation. So the request never came from the municipality prior, knowing that these developments were going to be going in the area for the next 3 to 10 years. These quarries are going to be utilized in the area to expand those road developments in efforts to support the community members. Now, it's not going to change. It hasn't stopped. It's an ongoing issue. But yet a lot of vocal people, like Lisa's mentioned, have consulted people, and it's not being addressed provincially or municipally-wise. And everybody's saying that it's a request from the municipality to the province. And I don't understand how us as community members can have that voice. Now, I'm happy where our councillors are here. I'm happy the municipalities here. It's just that this is something I thought would have been done before these quarries even opened up at this capacity for the highway.
And I think there's a socioeconomic aspect to this as well. I'm an urban planner, so I always look at these challenges. Not everyone has a car, right? And it's a question of fairness and question of equity, being able to walk to places and cycle to places. I live in the north end of Halifax. It's a different story here, but it's a very important aspect that we need to always keep in mind, that not everyone can afford a car, even if they wanted to have one. So I think that's a very important aspect as well. So thank you for that. How about can we talk a little bit about history of the way that community is designed? I know that came up in the conversation a couple of times. There has been, roads has been used before in designing the communities for putting roads through marginalized communities and such. That conversation came up a couple of times. Are there any historic background to the way that the community is designed that you think we need to capture as part of that discussion? Is anyone that knows the history of the community and the way it's been designed?
I just, again, from talking to family members and my cousins and uncles and whatnot, is that even the infrastructure development in the area, some of the areas and streets like the watering, plumbing, sewage area has not been, I guess, equal par to some other areas in the municipality. So even just the research back to that to the upgrading of systems and infrastructure is a great example of how that's inequitable, and that doesn't seem to be on parity with the other communities in the municipality.
Okay. Before we go to the next topic, which is around physical and mental health, which is again connected to this, it's not very far from this. Are there anything else around transportation? You know what? Let's actually say with transportation. There's another point on transportation there. How about access to services? We talked about walkability. How about, I know there isn't a transit system service in the community, but is there a desire for it? Is there, how do you get to services as it is, and how do you think that should be improved? Any comments on transportation and access to services?
I'm holding because I'm hoping that Ween is gonna speak up a bit. As I can hear her mouth move, I can see her mouth moving.
You're good?
I mean, so I guess your question is just really around, is there a desire for transportation within the community? I would say yes, but I think that the models that are sort of looked at, like the transit that's in the, sort of in the more populated areas of the valley or in HRM, isn't probably a great model for here, because it's not going to get utilized. We did have part of the King's Transit at one point, and like I said, it wasn't well utilized. So I think other options make a bit more sense. Sean just typed into the comments about having the railroad turned into a rails to trails. I think that would be absolutely incredible. I mean, that rail bed is just, falling apart. There's railroad spikes that are just, it's up, the ties are a mess. Like it's not in great shape. And I think Jeremy could probably talk about the desire for a trail in the community a lot. It would be really well used. And that coincides with, I guess the sort of interest in transportation to me is more around making biking a bit more accessible. Having that be an option, because there are a number of people on our road that bike into town and that kind of thing because they don't have cars or for whatever reason they're choosing. So I think that kind of trail is really welcomed, and we don't have a lot of support for that right now, it seems.
Jeremy, this is it. This is the time to talk about the trails.
Can I just give an introduction first before I start talking about trails?
Sure.
For you guys who don't know, I'm Jeremy Cromwell. I am the first African Canadian Snowmobile Club president in Nova Scotia / Canada. No one said anything that I wasn't so far yet. I'm also the safety coordinator for the Snowmobilers Association of Nova Scotia. Here in Hants County, our club, the Hants Snow Dusters, we maintain and operate 264 kilometers of trails. Some of the trails are in Eller's House and they go to Tantallon, but also our clubhouse is on Eldridge Road, and those trails hook into the Valley Trail system, which is another 800 kilometers of trails. A couple years ago, we had a meeting with Bob Schmidt, who owns the rail line, that he leases 66 kilometers of trail between Hansport down to Halifax and then up to Windsor Junction. West Hants has already started to lease some of the rail line from him. Bob's argument when we were talking about these trails were that the rail line, if the gypsum company ever opens again and say they needed 2,000 cars of gypsum hauled out of the rail or out of the gypsum plant, that it would be a viable resource for them to spend a couple $100,000 and fix the rail line up. And then that's why the rail line hasn't been closed. That's why the rail line's only in idle mode, because in a couple weeks' time, if they got that phone call, they could open the rail line back up. And Bob's argument was to build trails beside the rails, and you can already see this in town located by Lawton's, and it goes to the Windsor Elementary School and crosses over to the hospital. There has been talk that potentially that trail could continue to Garland's Crossing, and it would be nice to see it come all the way to 3 Mile Plains, also having access. And when we talk about trails, for me, it's not just bicyclers and walkers, it's snowmobilers and ATVers. The ATVers and snowmobiles, each vehicle that is registered, $40 goes into an off-highway vehicle infrastructure fund, which equals out to be between $1.4 to $1.8 million per year. All of the clubs and groups who are involved have access to apply for grants to obtain some of this money. Um, for us, like our snowmobile club, we apply for grants once in a while to do projects, but building trails beside the rails is quite a hefty cost. You're in the $50,000 range per kilometer to build trail beside the rails, but the economic impact of letting walkers, bicyclers, and the multi-users like snowmobiles, four-wheelers, being able to come to the town core and go into Garland's Cross and Irving, Crossroads Restaurant. You have Walker's Restaurant right beside the trail. You have Sobeys. All these different businesses would be able to benefit from multi-use vehicles driving into town, but also it's a place for people to walk or bicycle. If you go down the valley further, those rails are pulled, and that trail has been turned into a multi-use trail. Down in Berwick, you're going to find the trail speed limit is 20 kilometers an hour. You'll see horses out on the trail, or walkers or bicyclers. I believe as if we can work towards building trails beside the rails or a trail in town, and also going through town, reaching other places like the Super 8, and then getting across the Avon River to the Falmouth area where our trails come right to the #1 highway. We would have something for the younger generation to look at and maybe want to get involved in, either A, having something to do with the trails, or having something fun like a four-wheeler or snowmobile to go out and have something for them to do. And if it's not a four-wheeler snowmobile, it's a bicycle.
Yeah, I see Lisa saying multi-use trails, yes please, and John is saying how much is the value of life, and Lisa agreeing, saying I worry at some point we'll see someone heard walking on the tiny road shoulder. I think I'm just gonna, maybe if I can put Jackie on the spot for a second. What does having a multi-use trail mean for school children? Being able to walk around and being able to go to places, have you heard anything, working with children, how do you would feel something about something like that?
Yeah, I kind of, as a phys ed teacher, this is like taking lots of notes and ideas going in my head for when I return. We actually at 3 Mile Plains have a bike program that was started last year. And we've had students grade 3, grade 4 that have never been able to ride a bike, but because of the program last year, now ride a bike, a 2-wheeled bike without training wheels, went home, told their parents, made their parents take the training wheels off their bike, bring them up, showed them how they could bike at 3 Mile Plains School, and now are continuing. So there's those success stories. Definitely getting permission to take kids off the school grounds is very, very simple. So yeah, having a bike system into town to be able to use something else or connect 3 Mile Plains when COVID kind of dies down to the high school, or the high school come that way. I'm living in Falmouth, but teaching in various schools, you hear bits and pieces, and I just think about community access, community playgrounds. And I know there's a whole lot of history, and I'm not knowledgeable. I do know that I'm naive in some situation, bringing ideas up, but I'm here to learn and to understand, and then figure out how we can move forward. But definitely having those trails and horses, because I'm into horses, would be wonderful. So yeah, we could definitely use them. We actually have a grant at 3 Mile Plains. I don't know if it's going to actually take part, but it was to build a bike trail with a few little ups and downs around the big soccer field, we call it. So those of you who know, when you go straight up, there's the loop, and then if you look out, we call that the big soccer field. So it had the kids biking along the fence line, a few little rollers, and then back towards the shed. So when you leave the school today, you can kind of go out and look there. So that was because right now they don't have a large area for them to use the bike program that we had running. So
it's really about
here's your question.
multiple. Yeah, that's great. I think we talked about access to services. We talked about health and wellness. We talked about, equity. I think that the common trail system, a safe trail system, can achieve a lot for the community. I'm hearing. And I think Sean's 6-year-old would probably appreciate that too.
I think not even just my 6-year-old. I think it's not even just a representative of African Nova Scotian demographic. It's representative of anybody that works. I think it's a 900 media radius that the department switched it into now. So if it expanded last year that for busing students, that it's actually further now that a student has to walk now to the school. So I don't know if that was a miscommunication or whatever that, but if you're expecting more kids to walk, and we want to encourage walkers and we want to encourage people to be healthy and active, but we also have to keep them safe to do it. And when you have an old Highway 1 right there, and that's the only way to access that school, and there's no sidewalk, no lighting, no crosswalk, no access. And again, I get that's a provincial issue. At the end of the day is that there can be collaboration with the municipality and the province to represent the needs of the community members and to keep people safe in general. So I think that's a huge ask. I'm really happy, Mr. Cromwell, about the announcement for you being a president. That's amazing, because at the end of the day, we want to encourage people to use alternative methods of transportation. And you being at that table, that's another voice that I didn't know existed, which is amazing. But at the same note, our future is important. And I think as Avonport, if you take a bike to Avonport, you can literally bike from Avonport all the way down to the core of Kentville. Why not expand on that? And then that way we can bring more people out from the community, but also from the city, and they can be parking in Newport Station or somewhere and biking all the way down. Like that makes money. That's not 50 grand. That's making money for the community.
Now, this is just a little trail map here, but our club post is at Eldridge Road, and our trail drives straight through from here to Kentville. So we don't have our trails ready to go in Windsor, and we don't have snow. People go right to Colebrook. But when people get with their snowmobiles, just for instance, get to stop in here and drive through Falmouth and unload in Falmouth, well, they're stopping in town and getting $150 worth of fuel. They're stopping at the restaurants, getting something to eat. If not, they're just going straight to Colebrook and spending the money in Kings County. It's what us as the people have to build the things for the people to come. And I know our group has tried before working and building trails into town, but the geography and the snow we get, like you can drive by on the 101 and it can be rain, but back at the Mines Road Bridge, there can be 2 feet of snow. So it's geography.
So thank you, Jeremy. I think you just got muted there. All right, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone. I think that's an important aspect that I'm glad that we covered the trail system, and I think maybe more pressing than a transportation system that may be so expensive to build might be an easier target, through collaboration to achieve that. So moving on to the next theme here, which it's I'm not going to go through all of these. Some of these things can be covered through the survey, but I think one thing that's really important is talking about the greater diversity and representation and inclusion in the community. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the current situation, how inclusion is in the community. How do you feel you're included or not included in the decision making, and how do you think that should be changed? Is it through better engagement? Is it through hiring practices? How do you think we should improve the inclusiveness and promote that in the community?
I think that's kind of a multi-tiered question, and just because I don't want to lose it for later, I just want to say it's January 9th and Black History Month is nearly here, and I've seen nothing yet. And that happened last year too. And I brought it up last year, so I'm just mentioning it because we have some people from the municipality on the call. So outside of that, in terms of representation, I think things like this are really important. And I'd like to see, once your consultation is done, that this is driven by the municipality, and having the municipality reach out within communities. I think the other thing to recognize too is that some people have privileges that have allowed them to obtain educations or upgrading courses and whatnot that others have not had the advantage to. And the municipality offering something like that allows people from the Black community or from the First Nations community to then be able to actually apply for some jobs that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to before. That's an important step to say that we're a valued member of the community. So I just want to point that out, that, you know, it's not just enough to say we're going to open the job and recruit from those communities. You also have to recognize that you may not have the actual privilege or have been afforded the opportunities that allowed you to get the education to actually apply for the job.
Sarah, I see you nodding there. Is there something you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a great point to make, that not everybody has had those opportunities to secure that education piece. And that kind of ties into where I'm kind of working now in terms of my role, ensuring that people can have access to some of those educational programs and things. So I think it's definitely important to note that, yeah, within the community, we have people that have the knowledge and have the skills and that would do the great work in those roles, but they don't have the formal education to support that work. And so how you can support people to get that formal education to then be able to apply for some of these positions and some of those roles.
Thank you. Sean, did you want to say something about that? I see you nodding as well.
From a current stage, I look at it in the sense that, yes, we do want to retain employees. We want to actually see our community members represented. Like, it's great to say, oh, where do you work? Well, I work for the town or municipality, but I don't hear that often. When I go pay my water bill, I don't see that. Yes, it might be for my community, but it's not one of my family members or somebody I know that is qualified to be an admin assistant or to be in those positions. I find it's really hard to believe that in some capacity those people aren't qualified, or why us as a municipality that we want to create a diverse workplace, we're not investing in their education and employability. So it's a catch-22. You train them, you pay them, that money goes right back into your community. It's a win-win for everybody. But then I also remember from some of my family members telling me when I was a kid about how you would never be allowed to go in town. Like, you went in town, you got groceries, you came back out. Even now, a lot of people I know that talk about being out here, they're like, we don't want to be in town. If we didn't have to go in there, we wouldn't go in there. Now I know we're one municipality now, and we're all combined, but that's still a barrier in 2020 that needs to be addressed. And there's a reason why that is happening. And that's probably because they don't feel represented in the even establishments where they work, or when they go into the bank, or when they go to town and have to pay their water bill, and people don't understand their perspectives of where they're at, or how they don't understand why a bill's so much more than everything else. We can't read. There's people that can't read. So that empathy, that sympathy, that understanding, that extra step that needs to happen, I don't feel is happening, because I think the idea of we all have equal opportunity to apply, that's where the conversation stops. So I think that's a barrier, that's an issue that needs to be addressed, and a conversation needs to happen. And I really feel that even looking at the employment within the municipality, if you look at the numbers, that should not reflect what the numbers are right now in 2020.
Absolutely. Lisa says 100% on the chat box there. So equal opportunity, yes, that's fantastic. I think education, those are all really important points. But there's also a bigger thing that talking to Mary Allen last year, she brought it to our attention about the incident that happened in Halloween 2019. I think it would have been, some other things that could be done. I think Lisa mentioned the Black History Month not being, recognized and promoted as part of the educational perspective of that the municipality can do. What are the other things? I think there's awareness of the perspectives that you're talking about. I mean, Sean, you're talking about, many people not even have the education to be able to describe what they're going through and their experiences. What are the things that municipality can do as part of that education campaign to get people to understand and see the perspective? Black History Month is a great example. Is there anything else that you can talk about, or Black History Month itself? What are the things that can be done under that month?
I think that the community could start with a proclamation for the month. The municipality should probably have some kind of proclamation. Truro does it every year. Halifax does it every year. There's flag raisings that could be happening that are inviting elders within the community, and just sort of generally inviting community members to be a part of those proclamations. That's something that is a very important step towards, saying that we recognize that the Black community is a part of this community and we want to work together. And if that's not occurring, people aren't seeing that there's a desire from the municipality to work with our community.
Mm-hmm. I think this is also much more pronounced this year. This will be the first year after BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement gaining momentum last year. I think, more than ever, I think we've seen the need for greater awareness and education around, we always talk about it in the context of the United States, but the reality is, I'm in Halifax. We've seen cars willing to change. We've seen the different things that have the Africville here. So I think it's no different what you're talking about here.
Well, I mean, we had a huge turnout for our Black Lives Matter march in town. And so that, a march is only going to go so far. You have to then see action from communities based on doing those things, right? Like a march is a moment in time. And if it stops there, then it's not worth anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Sean says it should be all year. Culture should be reflected all the time for all people who live here or going to live here. Thank you, Sean.
Can I give an example of like what I refer to that?
For sure, yeah, absolutely.
Like kind of goes in what you said, Lisa, but like a good example is I look at George L.A. Clark, great poet from here, local, everything. And then I compare that to the Howard Trail and the birthplace of hockey. And that's the perfect example. They're both equally predominantly important, highly respected, reputable in the world, right? But one always takes more precedence when it comes to branding and accountability. And I get it's an awareness part of it because people can connect to things more, but we do have to represent our communities, not just certain things that we feel is important.
I think what you're saying, Sean, is something attainable for the municipality. It may not be. Sorry, I'm just putting. I'm a consultant, so I get to say these things. I know. This is. Anyway, I think these are the things that the municipality can undertake as well. I think so. This is great. I really appreciate this feedback because this is something attainable. You can say education is much harder, but branding and things like that, and Black History Months and promoting that, I think those are important aspects that needs to be addressed. And I think through our work, hopefully we can highlight those. So thank you for that. And Lisa says, absolutely, we have history makers here from the Black community in hockey, in military, in the arts. Where are they recognized? Very, very important, Lisa. Thank you. What is there? I think this is a. Is there anything else? There's a lot to be said about this, but there are a couple other priorities that I'd like to get through before we lose everybody here. I can see as long as you'd like me to, but in the interest of time, around the question of awareness and education, is there anything else you'd like to add? Okay, thank you for that. I think I'm already starting to think about what we talked about in terms of trails connections, and then Sean talking about branding and marketing and educational pieces. I think there are projects that can happen at the same time. I think along the trails, along the stopping points. So that's really great. Thank you for that. And Lisa says, I will say that West Hants Historic Society has done amazing work during Black History Months. The municipality could learn from them. They have gathered a lot of history. Smiley face. Thank you. So we talked about targeted education and awareness. We talked about greater diversity and representation. Some of it is linked to education, which goes much further, and providing equal opportunity doesn't start with just promoting the job. I think it's much more in depth. How about access to physical and mental health services? This was a challenge particularly pronounced in the First Nations community. Do you feel that particularly around LGBTQ plus and access to mental health services, do you see that being a challenge? I see a lot of nodding going on. Sean, do you want to talk about that?
I will talk from a neutral perspective. So I can speak on behalf of a lot of youth in the community that accessing this mental health agencies and supports in the area is very limited, and that's built to the red tape and the, I guess, the openness of the programs and accessibility to the programs. So do our youth actually have the opportunity to engage in mental health supports? If they can get to an actual clinician. However, central intake and other areas are barriers for our community members, and the actual onus and non-education around what is a mental health issue and how it can be supported is a barrier as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are able to access those services, the lack of representation from the providers in the community locally, and just not having the context of the local community either. A lot of the clinicians are coming from areas outside of Windsor, outside of the municipality, and they don't have that context about the specific issues within the community to be able to support some of the youth or some of the people that they're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. I think this brings up another question for me. Safe spaces for youth, particularly for youth. Do you feel that there are spaces, safe spaces for okay, okay. Any thoughts around that? Do you think that's an urgent matter that needs to be addressed?
And I don't even know if it's even if there were safe spaces, the access to be able to get to some of those spaces. So if they are not somewhere that's within walking distance for a lot of the youth, there's no way for them to get to some of these safe spaces. Even extracurricular activities from school and things like that, the youth aren't able to access those as kind of protective things to kind of help with that mental health and their wellness, because they don't have the ability to get home after some of those activities because there's no transportation. So even some of those protected spaces that could be there for the youth to access, they actually can't access those spaces because there's no way for them to get back home after that, or for them to get to them if they do need them.
Mm-hmm. It's all interconnected, isn't it? That Jackie was talking about the need for safe cycling spaces, and youth being able to cycle to places, being independent, especially around sensitive topics that they don't want to necessarily share with other people, being able to access them on their own. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important point as well. Thank you for that, Sarah. Jackie, did you want to say something about that? I saw you unmuting for a second. It's okay. I know. I said people that belong to the community, but you do work with the youth there, so
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I'm trying not to say a lot, and I'm just trying to really listen.
Appreciate that.
But I was also reflecting just now that I was at the skate park in town, and that there's a lot of kids hanging around, and I taught a lot of them, and now they're at the middle school or the high school, and some I recognized and some were like, Miss Allen, and they all talked about transportation and about how they were going to get home. And some of these kids, they were older kids, from 3 Mile Plains. And I thought, oh my goodness, I only have a car, and can I get them in my car and get their scooter in my car? And, thank goodness they don't have a bike because it's just a scooter. And they're constantly, they have other struggles and other things they have to work through. but that's one thing that is also on top of their plate of how are they going to get from a safe spot, an awesome spot downtown, with their friends and their peers, but yet now they're trying to get all the way home. So just talking about that just kind of reflected that and brought it up in memory for me.
Thank you. Yeah, another important aspect that it all interconnects with everything that we're talking about here. Lisa has a great comment here as well. I can't speak to access to youth mental health support. That's not an area I'd say I have any knowledge in, but I will share from a women's health perspective that there's a big issue with access to health services with rural community. Previously, communities had access to things like roving clinics with pap tests, wellness checks. Large Black communities also have these available for both women's health, men's health, if it's possible for the municipality to appeal for these services to return. Thank you for that, Lisa. Very important aspect in the discussion as well. Okay, so these are all very big topics. I think these will take many sessions to continue on. I do want to, we have another 15 minutes. I can say after that if anyone wants to discuss further, but for the interest of time, I do want to cover a couple more questions here. And one of them is community-led projects. One of the things we're going to try to do as part of this project is identify a few projects that community can undertake with some funding, outside funding, either from municipality, from the province, or federally. I've already talked to a couple of organizations that are interested in coming in and trying to take some projects into fruition. We're trying to identify some community-led projects. We talked about the trails, we talked about safe spaces, we talked about cycling, the program that we talked about. I think it could be a program, it could be a physical project. Is there anything that has been discussed within the community that you think? I think Sean nodding. Go ahead, Sean.
I think you should talk to Harley and Juanita Peters and Gray. There's all kinds of community things that they're doing. And I think that this is a great opportunity for them to voice things that they could be supported in that are already actively being done and that could definitely use some support. So I don't know if they want to speak to it or not, but I think they could or should.
I think you want yeah, go ahead. You're good now.
Yeah, one of our main things that we've been involved in is trying to get some work done in the park. Our park, we have such a beautiful park up the road up there. We're trying to get some stuff done in it. COVID's really just put a damper on everything that we do. Everybody in this community needs a park. It's exercise, it's healthy living. It's actually we have enough space to do trails around the park. So there's a lot of things that really need to get done there. And that would put something in the community that everybody in our community can use. Adults, seniors, children, everybody. And that's one of our main things that we'd like to know. And I know that there's funding out there for it. With the COVID and stuff like that, we haven't really been able to get together and meet and do any discussions, but I'm telling you, this panel of young, smart, educated students from the African Nova Scotian community, I am totally impressed with you guys. And they're doing a very good job.
You want what? Can you elaborate on that? What's like? Is that within the community itself? Is it all of Nova Scotia or?
For the park, or no? I mean all of Nova Scotia, but out from our community. These guys all here, I tell you right now, we're very impressed with their leadership, their places where they are right now in life, their educations that they've achieved, and their willingness to partake and make this a better community to live in coordination with yourselves and the municipality of West Hants.
So one of the things we are going, as part of this project, is going to propose a advisory committee to council to so if there are some names that you want to pass on as well, go ahead.
There they are.
Right here. Great.
Yeah, I think it means the four of us youngins that are on this call.
Great. Great. Awesome.
We'll be the support background. I do have to leave because I did have something scheduled for 2:30 today. I didn't know about this until last evening. I would like to stay, but I will watch the rest of it later this evening.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Harley.
It was nice to meet everybody, and it's a very informative session. Thanks very much on behalf of myself and my husband, who's sitting back here watching me. what he's been doing for 47 years. Next time.
Thank you, Harley.
Have a good evening. Thanks very much, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
So if there are already projects that are being undertaken, and if there's a document, if there's anything like that, either send it to Crystal or myself. Would love to include some of that already engagements that has been done around that. Would love to get a copy of, if there's a document, or if you can just send me an email, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you connect with Juanita and Harley on sort of what we'd like to do with the park, they've kind of gathered all of the information, because we've met as community, you know, and we've had like the volunteer fire department up to kind of help us in terms of cleaning up the park space. I think the next step is probably, you know, building better access. So, you know, having an improved parking lot, having the park be a little bit more safe. You know, so like we probably need to have a security camera there because it is in a fairly private area. You know, we probably need to have a bit more fencing than what's there, you know, and working on those kind of things, getting the water that was at the park fixed up so that that's usable again. Like I'm thinking about things that can be done with the funding that you mentioned. Those are some of the things that could be done. I talked to somebody from the recreation department within West Hants, and they had interest in coming into the community to do some of like the winter snowshoe hikes, and you know, in the summertime they were out here doing kayaking on Ponic Lake. Those kind of activities are really valuable within a community. You know, and up until 2 years ago, I had no idea that you could even rent. And I say rent, but it's freely available. You can borrow winter exercise equipment, you know, so snowshoes and skis and that kind of thing, and having trails to actually go and use the equipment on would be helpful. And I think Jeremy had talked about how much it would cost to kind of put in, you know, and like snowmobiling or multi-purpose trails. And that's sort of another area in which the municipality could do some funding and have that led with in conjunction with the Hants Snow Dusters.
And I think, Lisa, that's a great point, that if the park is established and if that's a place that is safe for use, then that idea of bringing services into the community as opposed to having members from the community go to the services. So instead of having to go to Windsor to access some of those recreation programming, having that programming actually facilitated right out of the park so that everybody can kind of access it in that environment, and then that kind of takes away that barrier of transportation as well for a lot of people.
And that's again bringing up the whole topic of safe space as well, right? Yeah.
I'm wondering, has the municipality ever offered to purchase or to take ownership of the park up on Ponic Road at all?
I wouldn't have that information. Crystal, do you want to talk about that?
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I can certainly look into it and let you guys know, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's
sure.
I mean, at least according to the sign, in principle, it's like a joint ownership park between the African Nova Scotian community and the municipality, but I don't think it's ever really operated in that sense.
I'll just speak onto that for a minute. I know Abe had been looking in it, and I had a conversation with Juanita on it, and then COVID hit, and she had her children come home from Ontario who had to self-isolate, so things sort of went off. We had to put it on hold, but I do know there has been some conversations on the playground, but I think there's a conversation that can be had there later on. So
Thank you. So the park programming within the park itself, access to it, and the trails. I think that's a few projects that I think a lot of people can get behind. I think a lot of the things we are hearing are similar to other sessions as well. I think the greater shared goals there may be, a greater chance of success here. So thank you.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Go ahead, of course, Jackie.
I was just trying to think, connecting the school, because I know the school has tons of skates and helmets, and they're not used. They're used once. Some schools go skating more than others, but the program at 3 Mile Plains has typically been the kids go one time. So I take time and fit the kids with skates that don't have skates or don't have helmets. But I've lent. I've never sent out to the community at any of the schools that the skates are there. But if I have a request, then I definitely lend out skates for the skating season, for the winter season. We have snowshoes. So if working with the schools, and I guess that's kind of why I joined today, was how can I as a teacher or an administrator help support, whether I'm at 3 Mile Plains School or another school, how can I support those students and families and community members with the school? So yeah, so there's always that to think of as well.
Sean is asking if the rink was built by, again, by the school, would the school use it?
Are you thinking of like Falmouth does that?
No, next to TMP.
3 Mile Plains had an outdoor rink when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was just typing you a private message, Jackie. There's an outdoor rink that is never used anymore next to TMP. Yeah.
And it was I know it was a financial issue or whatever, but I'm just there thinking we just had a surplus or potential surplus of items from the older rink with the new rink being built, and potentially some of that stuff could have been repurposed to refurbish that facility for it to be used temporarily for the winter. And I'm thinking, like, look at the Oval, look at Berwick's facility, look at Family. Like if we have the materials already, then that wouldn't be a lot of financing that needs to be invested. But I don't know if you knew there was a rink there or not, but there was.
Yeah, I do. I know about, I was going to ask you about the playground that you're talking about is the one, Sean, up on Pontic Road. Because a couple of years ago, I was kind of interested in that. I heard Win, I asked a few people. So if you ladies ever need another body to help, please reach out. Because that's kind of where my love and my heart is. But yeah, you're talking about the rink at the bottom. I got Win that there was a rink or an outdoor rink, and if that was if I had some manpower to get that going, 100% I would use it with the kids at the school.
Yeah,
I can speak. Yeah, I mean, I remembered as a child growing up, and it was community looked after by the community back then. I can remember there was times for skates, there was time for hockey. I believe Ernie Smith put a lot of time into that, and maybe even Windsor Fire used to put water in there. They had it. I'm assuming, just going by, I'm only 19, but by age, I'm sure it's in rough shape. And just to comment on Sean, the municipality didn't own the old Windsor rink, so we have no surplus there. That was owned by the exhibition grounds, and I think most of that has been utilized somewhere else. But I do know that rink, I imagine the boards and stuff, I know it was well utilized. They'd have bonfires there and it was great, but I'm not even sure whose land that is on now. My mom probably can remember.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the roadblock that I hit when I was
the liability
questions was there was some past history with the park, and then when I found out about the rink, I was all excited, and then the roadblock was it's not on school property, or it's on somebody else's property that doesn't want the school kids going down and doesn't want community members going down. I don't know if that property has changed hands, and you have to be respectful of that. I do know that, but it might be years have passed, and maybe it's a good time to start that conversation again and see where it goes. But I would 100% be interested, no matter where I'm working, be interested in that.
Well, Jeremy also just raised his hand saying he would be willing to help create, build, fundraise, apply for grants to raise funds to fix the park up. He says, just get a hold of me. We can brainstorm ideas. Thank you and happy trails, everyone. So I think I have to say the level of excitement talking about the rink went through the roof in this conversation. So that's great. I think there are things that we can all agree on. I do have one more question about right before we kind of wrap up this section, we can stay on talk further, but communication piece, I think we have someone on the communication side of things with the municipality here, and she likes to hear specific. She doesn't want to be general about things. We talked a little bit at the beginning of this conversation on how to reach people. Lisa said direct phone calls, going to places that people are when the COVID is not around us. I think, Jackie, you haven't talked about it, but I think going to schools, Sarah talked about reaching out to school directly. Is there anything else that you think, specifically your community, specific ways that the municipality should engage the community moving forward?
I have a silly idea. Don't know if it would work or not, but I know a lot of the community members play TV bingo, and there's opportunity for ads in that. And I bet you that they would be seeing those ads because they always watching that to play the bingo weekly. And I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but I just know that like when it's bingo time, and they're all on that screen.
We did a consultation for HRM a few years ago now. We went to community bingo halls when it was in person, and that was a great engagement. Everyone was willing to talk and everyone was excited. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think Sean hits on something really important there, like going where community is already gathering. So I mean, that's, it's through TV, but that's a really good way to get people. And things like when there are events with the Legion, when there are, and the Legion, I don't know if they even still do bingo in person, pre-COVID, or if they will afterwards, but things where the community is already gathering together is a good time to even just include an announcement what's happening in the municipality. Like people are not really checking on social media, or if they are, they're not always seeing things. I mean, I no longer have social media, but I mean, there was always a big problem where even if you follow pages, you're not seeing things from the pages, right? So it's not a good medium to communicate to the community at all. But yeah, going where the community is gathering, events, churches is really key for engaging like the older members of our community in particular. So thinking about things like that.
Just while we're talking about communication and things going on in the community, one thing I will mention, and I'm not sure how many you're aware, the municipality is hosting a winter carnival activity from January 22nd to February the 5th, Crystal, I think. Yeah. And I mean, I know as counselor for the area, I'm looking at doing events. It'll all depend on COVID. And if anyone has a suggestion that we could work on now for that time frame, reach out and I'd be more than willing to meet with you, so that we could come up with something that could get the community involved. Working with one right now for Newport Station, and the other area would be, I'll probably do something over here in Sweets Corner. But if anyone knows of something that could jumpstart any of the things that we're discussing today for communication or anything, please reach out to me and let me know. And I'd be more than willing to help start something. I can do that, Lisa. I see your, I'll put my number in here now, and then everyone will have it. And we can go from there.
Okay, just want to be respectful of people's times. If again, this is just the beginning of the conversation. We're going to capture, I think we covered a lot of ground today. We're going to capture a lot of that in our consultation report that's going to be presented to council, hopefully early February. We have to finish the report by the end of the month, but we'll get the presentation going as soon as the report is done. Please reach out if you know people that haven't taken the survey. Lisa will have the survey ongoing until the end of the month, so please let people know, and we'll capture that as much as possible. If anyone wants to go from here, we can end it here. But if you want to stay on, by all means. But I wanted to thank you everybody for this session. This has been one of the more engaging ones that we've had. So thank you for that. Really appreciate your time and your ideas. And I think hopefully you will see your comments reflected in our reports when it comes out. And please reach out to us with any other further comments you may have. And Debbie just put her number there as well, or Lisa put Debbie's number there.
Yeah, it came to me privately, so
Oh.
I thought I'd share it with everyone.
Oh, thank you. No, I see that now. No, that's perfect.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss? If you want to switch off, by all means, but if there is anything else you'd like to discuss, I'm happy to be here a couple more minutes, a few more minutes.
No, I just want to say I appreciate everyone taking part, and I'm happy to see people involved, and just a few comments while I have everyone. I know the trails, there has been conversations at the municipalities table on those trails, but there's more to it than just saying we can do it or build. Obviously there's money, and also Bob Smith, so he controls it. So we're at his mercy at some times, and that's not always an easy thing. And I know Halifax County was looking at bringing them out too. So our recreation department has been on that, but as you know, some things aren't as easy as it sounds to do. So we're at their mercy as well. But other than that, thank you. And if anyone has any questions or thinks of something, if they don't want to reach out to Crystal or Rashad, just as counselor for the area, let me know, and I'll see what we can do. And thanks, Crystal, for you guys for putting this on today. So
I wish to say the same thing, Crash and Crystal. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed all of your sessions. This one, like you said, Crash, has been a little bit more active than the other ones, but there's a lot come out of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill, for coming to all the sessions so far. Appreciate that. Okay,
All right,
well,
I'm gonna sign off, but thank you, everybody.
thank you very much. Really appreciate everyone's time. Jeremy, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Happy trails.
Happy trails. You guys have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everybody's leaving. Thank you, Sarah.
Happy to stay, Sean.
Yeah, I just had some curiosity questions, so I was just waiting until if anybody was leaving or not.
Please.
So
yeah, if anyone wants to jump off, please go ahead. I'll be here a few more minutes to answer Sean's questions or anyone else's. Go ahead, Sean.
So it's more of some general comments about the consultation, which is great. And Crystal, I'm actually happy you're still on as well and stuff. But like sometimes when you're having these consults and stuff like that, it is difficult having the council members in the session as well. And I do want to highlight that. Not saying that it's a negative. I'm just saying is that sometimes some people will be a little bit more vocal when the council representative is not there, because they'll feel that there could be a bias or whatnot. So